Welcome, everybody, to the Respawn Please podcast. I am your host, Jesus, and with me, as always, is Ell. Ell, how's it going?
I'm doing well. I'm so glad that it's the weekend. The week was a little busy with work and stuff, but I'm glad that today's Saturday and I got time to kind of just be free and do as I please.
Oh, yeah. I feel that. Yeah. I texted you at 40 minutes before we were supposed to do the podcast last night going, I just got home and I don't want to do anything.
Oh, yeah. I've been there plenty of times.
Yeah. Yesterday, it was a long day and I was just, beat. So that's why we're doing it today. We're doing it today because...
No worries. Stuff like that happens all the time where work-life balance and just life in general sometimes can get you down and it's just you don't have the strength to do anything.
Oh, yeah. It's true. And that's kind of the topic of discussion today. We're going to talk about mental health and gaming, what that means to us, how we use gaming to kind of cope with our mental health, and, other ways that we can cope with it, too, because, mental health is important. And that's something that should be talked about and is not often talked about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, very true.
I think it's getting better as the years roll on. I think people are getting more comfortable, but there's still sort of a stigma with it, No,
definitely. I think because that's a great explanation. I like to compare it to. It almost seems like maybe every year might be too generous, but it feels like it. But it almost feels like we can recall from when we were younger. Mental health was not a big topic of conversation, if any at all, or actually, if at all. And over the years, it's become more and more like, hey, don't hold this stuff in. Express yourself, talk about, have conversations, talk to people who you trust or who you feel comfortable talking about, talking to about mental health or things that might be happening with you, And so it seems like I think what's happening is just as generations go and they come, new different types of things. They break down maybe previous things of what previous societies, the way that they did things are like, hey, we should probably, progress and get better at talking about these things and being comfortable with talking about emotions because there's nothing wrong with that,
Yeah, I agree. It's wild to think I don't want to talk bad about my father, but trying to talk to my father about my emotions tends to lead him to going, I don't understand what you're going through. I don't want to talk about this, is more often than not. I hate that I have to say that. I love my dad. Don't get me wrong. I love my dad.
Yeah.
But it's not, I'm not comfortable with talking to him about certain aspects. My dog is not comfortable with it either.
Yeah.
And even with my mom to some extent too. So it's just an interesting dilemma for me where if I try to talk to him, they'll listen. They'll listen for the most part, but they won't always be there in the way that I need them to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Go ahead. I was going to say that makes a lot of sense because I can probably relate to that in a way so my mother, which I feel like maybe a long time ago you met my mom. She was born here in the States, but my father was born in Mexico, and he came to the States later in life when he was a little bit older, where he met my mom. And back in the day, for him, even he has had to kind of learn to kind of deal with emotions and be able to talk about them. Because I remember from back in the day, talking about emotions was just to him, like you said with your dad, it was very difficult and they couldn't really relate because I always compare it to generations where in their time, sometimes that was almost no, that's not what's important. What's important is having to work, pay your bills, have a family, such and such. Yeah. And for some reason, that's just how things rolled or things went, in society. And they were okay with that, and they were okay. And I'm pretty sure there are people who probably wanted that to change and be more positive, to be like, no, it's okay to talk, because even I remember talking to my dad, there were a couple of times where I wanted to talk to him about things, or I wanted to talk to him about his past upbringing and stuff like that. And he wouldn't be comfortable talking about it, or I would try to tell him, hey, have you ever thought about talking to a therapist about things? Because that used to be a stigma where, like, why would I go talk to a therapist about, my past? It doesn't matter. Like, it's da-da-da. And, it's interesting because, sometimes he can, like, nowadays he's a little bit better about it, but he still has a moment where he can't quite relate just because maybe of his upbringing or, I don't know. And it's just the times were different. And like, it makes perfect sense what you said.
Yeah. And it feels like a cop out saying times are different, but it's also true. I also like, I think it's also a cultural thing too.
That too. Yeah.
I like both our dads are Latinos. My dad's Puerto Rican. So, and like my dad, the machismo kind of lifestyle is a thing. Yeah. And that's kind of what my dad was brought up on. You can't show emotion in many ways. And
exactly.
And but before we dive any deeper with this topic of conversation, I realized I didn't ask you what you've been playing this week. It's so weird. Flipping around. What you been playing this week? How have you been coping with mental health this week by playing video games?
That's so funny. No, so what I've been playing, I've actually been sticking to like a couple games, like just maybe like a handful. So been playing Mario Kart. Mario Kart's pretty fun just to turn your brain off and just, play simple little racing game. Slay the Spire, which I'm enjoying a lot. I finally got started in the robot class. I forgot what their class is called.
The Defect.
Defect, yeah. So I've been learning about that class, and
the orbs are so cool, aren't they?
They are cool. At first I was like, what do these things do? I know they do other things, and just having to learn about it.
Yeah.
Playing Slay the Spire, of course, Sons of the Forest, and then of course Overwatch. And so those have been like my rotation of things, and getting prepared for the next season to kind of learn about the new hero that just got revealed.
Yeah. Are you excited about the new hero?
I am excited, and I say that because I think that this new hero, I've seen other people who are like just they play that Overwatch game like 24/7 just constantly, and they've got to play with that character before it gets released. And I think it's going to bring a new pace to the game. And I think it's going to be interesting to create interesting situations if you play in just whether it be competitive or just unranked or whatever. And so I think it'll present some new cool ways to go about playing.
Nice. I as I've mentioned, I've retired from my Overwatch playthrough, but I may jump in just to try them out or two. It'll probably be like on a stream with you or something, but because I'm not gonna play that shit by myself. I'm not crazy. I'm not you. I'll just get mad and then never want to play again. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it though. I'm interested in trying it out. He looked cool. I like them. I'm interested in seeing how this Tree of Life works. Situation and using that to block off like lanes and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, like cool. You said, I think it'll definitely change the pace for sure when you have something like that. Because this is I guess May's thing is the closest to blocking off lanes.
Yeah, with the ice wall.
Yeah, but this is their ultimate, isn't it? Like the Tree of Life is the ultimate.
Yeah, the Tree of Life is their ultimate. Yeah, and they have other cool like ways of getting new perspectives with like this pedal thing that kind of floats into the air if you step on it and gives you a new angle on things, and it's interesting. I'm excited for it. Yeah. What have you been playing?
I mentioned it on Wednesday on the stream, or maybe I don't know if I mentioned it on the stream. Maybe I mentioned it before the stream when it was just us talking. I've been in a video game funk. Haven't really been playing too many things. I got back into Vampire Survivors, been playing that, just kind of again turning my brain off and just not thinking about stuff after these last 2 weeks of stress and endless meetings. It almost feels like, and just being tired 24/7 almost. Vampire Survivors has been a good way to turn off my brain. I've been playing Sons of the Forest on my personal stream. Same with World of Warcraft, but I don't know. It's when I play games on my personal stream, it feels like the fun is kind of fading, if you know what I mean.
Does it feel more like a job?
Yeah. It feels like not necessarily a job, but more like a performance,
Okay. Yeah.
Where I'm having to perform, and which is not necessarily a bad thing because I do enjoy streaming itself. It's just, there's an element that when I'm streaming the fun of the game, I kind of lose sight of that because I'm focused on, okay, what am I saying? What am I doing? How am I presenting?
How to be entertaining and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I'm learning. I'm trying to balance it, one day at a time. Probably, I don't think I'll ever be like a mainstream streamer or anything like that, but hopefully small. Outside of that, I want to say it was Thursday night. I couldn't sleep. No, it was Wednesday. It was Wednesday night after we got done with the stream. I couldn't sleep. I graded some stuff and I was like, I can't sleep. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I have to be at school in about 6 hours. And so what did I do? I started playing Mass Effect.
Oh, wow.
It's like, I'll just play some Mass Effect. And so I started playing that, and I love Mass Effect. It's always fun. So going through that. I haven't really touched it at all since playing it. I got through Eden Prime, got to the Citadel, and haven't touched it since. So I got to get back to it. But I love Mass Effect. It's one of those comfort games for me.
Yeah, I get that.
It's one of those games that, like, I've been a fan of Mass Effect since it came out in 2007. It came out in my senior year of high school, and I remember skipping school so I could go play it and stuff. Because like I was just like, I just want to play this game nonstop. This is all I care about. And so segueing away from this brings me kind of into our first kind of conversation. What are some comfort games that you that you gravitate towards when life is just beating you down and you just need an escape from life?
Yeah. Funny enough, I think that if I open this up, like some of the comfort games that I've been going to lately, I know I mentioned this to you before we got on the stream. Like I love Grand Theft Auto, just because I was literally playing like maybe a couple hours earlier, and like I know almost every mission like the back of my hand. I'm like, oh, this is the mission where you do this is where you do that. So it's just kind of like I played it so much that it's just like comfortable where I don't have to think as much. I'm like, oh, I gotta go do this. I know there's gonna be computers here that I gotta shoot. And it's just very simple, and it's there's comedy writing in there that I really enjoy, as far as like the radio stations that I just find hilarious, and I always quote them to myself and to my partner, but she knows nothing about them.
Does she look at you like you're crazy?
Yeah, no. A couple times she'll be like, "What's wrong with you?" Or she'll be like, "What is that from?" And I'll be like, "Oh, it's from Grand Theft Auto 3. There's this whole station called Chatterbox. It's so cool." And I don't know why I latch onto it. I just liked it, and so
yeah. Does she like point at you and go, "Stop it, nerd"?
No, she won't say that. She'll just be like, "Okay," and she'll laugh at certain things because I'll randomly say like some ridiculous line from those like skits or whatever, and she'll be like, "What the hell is going on in your head?" And I'm like, "Oh no, it's from Grand Theft Auto. Sorry." And so
it's not me, it's the game. I swear,
it's the game. I promise you. And so I'll play games like that just because it's kind of like just a open world in your own sandbox stuff, and you can do a mission or get lost and just go randomly, steal cars, break into cars, just blow up cars and stuff, and it's pretty fun. I'll play games like that, or I'll play like Slay the Spires. Lately has been a very big comfort game for me, just because it requires me to think and strategize, but it's not too extensive. Like, I kind of just like, okay, this is how it is. And like, you can go through a run, and let's say you lose, and then you can just do it again. And it's very, very like easy to just go in, get out, go in, and it can take up hours and hours. Besides that, I would say that Vampire Survivor is another one. Very simple comfort game. Just literally all you're doing is moving. That's all you're doing. You're not doing anything else, picking up power-ups.
Yeah.
So easy to follow. But other than that, I would say Overwatch, but every now and then Overwatch is not a comfort game, and it's
it's a rage-inducing, gotta scream at the top of your lungs fest.
Exactly. But other than that, I want to say off the top of my head, lately, those have been the ones. I'm pretty sure back in the day, it would be other things like maybe FIFA, but what I would do is I used to play FIFA on I have it on my Switch, but it's an older version. Mm-hmm. And what I would do is like if I just wanted to play soccer but not have too difficult, I just turn the difficulty down and just score like 8-9 goals in a match and be like, oh, this is so cool. And it's comforting to me because I'm just like, cool, I don't have to get frustrated at the NPC if it's too hard or whatever.
Yeah.
But though I'd say from what I remember, those are like some comfort games, and I'm trying to remember. I think so off the top of my head. But what about you?
So Vampire Survivor, I think you hit it on the nail on the head there. It's just easy. Turn your brain off. It's what I would say is a good podcast game. You know, you can kind of just turn your brain off, listen to a podcast, move left, right, up, down, whatever you need to. Occasionally select something to power up and stuff. And it can have a difficulty to it, but it's also like you're supposed to die. You know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
You're not supposed to survive at all. So it's like you're going to inevitably die. I mean, it's just fun to see how long you can last. And sometimes you last a long time. Sometimes you last, 5 minutes because just not lucky enough. Like before we started this, when you hopped on, I was like, yeah, I'm playing Vampire Survivor. So we're going to start late because I'm in the zone right now. Cause like I had like upgraded all my stuff pretty much to the max and like nothing could come near me unless I was just purposely running into them so I could die.
That's so funny.
But I was like at 30 minutes, I was 25 minutes, but yeah, it's just like, it's a good game to just kind of turn your brain off. And it has been pretty much my comfort game for the last 2 weeks because these last 2 weeks for me have been hectic as hell. So it's been nice to just have this simple game, not to have to think about anything. Like, it's not Overwatch. Overwatch makes me angry. So Overwatch will never be a comfort game for me. But like Mass Effect is a comfort game to me because like similar to you with GTA, I just know Mass Effect like the back of my hand. Like I can quote it to no ends. I still love exploring, even though I pretty much have discovered everything in the game. I've 100%ed this game multiple times over the years. I've played it on the Xbox. I've played it on the PlayStation. I've played it on PC. I got Legendary Edition on Xbox, PC, and PlayStation because I'm a crazy person. It's the game. It's one of my favorite games of all time. Mm-hmm. It's funny too because it's like, as much as I love Mass Effect, it's not my favorite game of all time.
That's so funny.
I just love the trilogy, like Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. And even Andromeda. I love Andromeda too. I know a lot of people give it slack, but Andromeda, still a fantastic game too. And they're all sort of comfort games for me to varying degrees. Mass Effect 1 is probably the most comfort one for me, just because it's probably the one I've played the most. Mass Effect 2 might be the one I've played the most. It's up to debate between those two. But outside of that, Pokemon has always been comfort for me. I've been playing Pokemon since I was 8 years old or something like that. 7, 8 years old, because it came out in 97, 98, somewhere around there. So whenever it came out, I've been playing it because I got it pretty much day one way back when. So Pokemon's always been that comfort game for me. Just again, it's easy game to just kind of turn your brain off and just have fun with it. You're not. I've never taken Pokemon seriously or anything. It's fun collecting these cute little shit monsters and battling with them and just having fun with it. Another one, and this might be insane, or maybe it's not insane. Portal's a comfort game for me. I love
see
Portal.
that.
Portal. The puzzles, man, they can get frustrating at times. Like, no matter how often I play Portal, and I just realized this recently because I was streaming Portal on my streams, that even though I play it, I play it like every year pretty much, just because it takes like 5-6 hours to beat. It's fairly simple. But no matter what, I always forget the puzzles, like especially like the later puzzles where I'm like, man, how do I do this again? What the fuck am I doing? What is going on? And then I just overthink it. I get into my own head and I'm like, okay. So it doesn't sound like it's a comfort game, but it is, like, because it's more or less like, I know I've done this before, so I know I can do it again. But what was the solution? And then Portal 2 more so, just because Portal 2, I think, has more story to it and more characters I say more characters. There's only, I guess, because you have GLaDOS, you have Wheatley, you have, what's his name? What's his name?
Simmons' character?
Yeah, you have his character like saying off the wall crap as you're navigating through the old structure of the facilities of Aperture Science.
Yeah.
And so, and then you learn the story of GLaDOS too, because GLaDOS was his assistant and all that. So I don't know. I love it. I just love it. It's Portal's. I just love Portal. Portal 2 is my favorite game of all time. So, and then Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic and Star Wars The Old Republic, the MMO, and then the RPG are also comfort games for me. Star Wars The Old Republic is the only MMO that I can consistently play. Like even now, like as much as I'm enjoying World of Warcraft, I'm already like feeling burned out by it. And I'm like, I don't really want to play anymore. I'm going to keep playing because of my stream stuff. But I'm kind of burned out on it already. And like, I just want to go play Star Wars The Old Republic. I can't tell you how many characters I've created in Star Wars The Old Republic. I've completed all the storylines that you can do. I've done pretty much everything in that game, as much as you can do in that MMO when they, update it like fairly regularly. I guess they don't really update it fairly regularly, but yeah, it's just a comfort game. Another game that just turn my brain off and kind of just go through the motions almost. And I think that's what makes a comfort game a comfort game. You're just kind of going through the motions because you're familiar with them. You're knowledgeable about them. You know what you're doing. It's not
exactly
struggling to figure out something out. Well, in the case of Portal, there's some struggling, but
no, yeah, definitely. It's funny because one of the games that my partner, she told me that she actually enjoyed watching me play of all the games was because it looked beautiful was Red Dead Redemption 2 on PC. Because there would be sometimes I would just kind of be roaming and not doing a mission and just kind of like checking out the landscape. Because Red Dead Redemption 2 has those beautiful like landscapes that sometimes if you're going from town to town, you just go through the forest or a couple woods or you'll see mountains. And she would literally be in awe and be like, oh my God, this is like so beautiful. Like, how do you just not stay here and and not go do a mission? Yeah. And she always would tell me to tell her when I would play it because she would want to watch me play it. And and so I love that game too. I've been meaning to play it again because I like the character Arthur Morgan. He's such a cool character. Yeah. And that whole storyline is pretty cool. But yeah, that for her, she enjoyed watching me play. She also has a couple comfort games. She doesn't play it all that much, but she had like Animal Crossing. She loved Animal Crossing.
Oh yeah.
And then there's like some other game that is like Animal Crossing, but it deals with farming. It's some sort of I can't remember the name of
Harvest Moon? Stardew Valley?
It's not Stardew Valley. It might be Harvest. Is it Harvest Moon? No, it's
Harvest Moon. Is there a cow? Is a cow usually on the screen? Okay, then it's probably not Harvest Moon then, because Harvest Moon usually has a cow on their screen in some way.
I'll tell you what it is. It is. See if I can pull it up. It is. Oh, My Time at Portia.
Oh, Portia.
My Time at Portia.
Yeah. I tried playing that game and I can never get into it. Because it's on Game Pass, right? Or it was on Game Pass.
I think so. I know she got it for my Switch. Like she would play my Switch from time to time, and she was like, "This is fun," and she would just be
nice,
just like having fun with it. So
nice. That's awesome. That's one thing I wanted to kind of roll back to, like your experience with Red Dead and your partner. I think that's the power of gaming. Like, just even if they're not playing the game, they can still find the beauty of it. Like just watching someone else play. Like, back when Dishonored, the first game, came out, that was this is getting into my personal life. That was the last time I was in an actual relationship, like meaningful relationship where I had. Yeah. Anyways, my partner at the time and I, she was obsessed with Dishonored, watching me play Dishonored. She anytime I would try to get her to play, she'd be like, no, I just want to watch you play, because she loved the story, she loved Corvo, she just liked the aesthetic, the steampunky aesthetic of it and everything, and the intrigue of Dishonored. And when we got a dog, we named the dog Corvo, which is kind of funny because Corvo is the name of Corvo is, I believe it is Italian for Raven or Crow or something like that. So naming a dog that was kind of funny. So yeah, it was wild. And that, I think that's just the power of gaming, being able to get close to somebody in that way, being able to, for them to appreciate the game, even if they're not playing it. Have you ever had that experience on your side where you watch a game where you're just like, I just want to watch you play this game and experience it through you?
I think, I've had a couple of those with like Twitch streamers. They would play like very complicated games. I can't remember. One that always interested me, and I know we've talked about it on the podcast before, where I always like to watch other streamers that came or just YouTube videos of people who came up with creative ways to kill people in Hitman. And like just like that. Oh, and then there was a period in time I actually thought about getting back into it, where I think for the longest time, like I'd play video games, and then randomly on YouTube I started to get into speedrunning, and so I loved watching people beat games super quick. So of course, one of the first ones that I saw was there was these dedicated this dedicated group who would try to figure out how to beat GTA 3, of course, the fastest. And just to see how they got through missions quick was so interesting to me. So naturally, I would go from that to like Vice City. But then from there, I'd be like, I wonder what else is there. And then I would see people play Dark Souls. And I'm like, well, I don't play Dark Souls. But it's interesting to see other people who have kind of just like, in a way, mastered it to the point to where they can just beat the game like very quick. And I loved watching them because they were like, all right, this is what you're going to do. You don't need to do any of this. Just get this, the spellcaster type or whatever. And then you're going to want to learn this, go here. You got to jump this. Just the small technicalities or the technical steps of it was so interesting to me. And so from there, I would like look up games like speedrunning for Fallout games. Then I would look up games. I'm like, well, what's the quickest speed run? I'm like, what's that? And then I would get into that. And there'd be nights where sometimes I would just watch replays of like speed runs because I loved it so much. And so there's like a couple games that that I like watching other people, like, for example, Dark Souls. I like people who are really great at it, knowing that I will probably never play it. And just watching them to see how good they are, and like, they talk about their strategies and why they do it certain ways or do certain things. And so,
Out of curiosity, have you ever been tempted to try a speed run of any game? Like seeing other people do it where you're like, I want to try speed running this?
I think for like 1 second, I thought about it. And then I was like, no, let me leave it to the pros. I'm just not like, I mean, of course it like, I think initially I'd be like, well, maybe I could do a Grand Theft Auto game or something like that. And then I think after that, I was like, well, or no, if I don't do that, what if I did some sort of like Zelda or like Mario type of game? But then I would always watch other speedrunners, and then I get a little discouraged, and I'd be like, people have already done this. I don't want to, I don't want to do this. And I'm like, well, no, I think maybe I just realized I think I enjoy being more of the spectator and just watching people do it. And so I always found that more interesting, that somebody took the time out to figure that out.
Yeah, I agree. It's always more fun that for games that, you know, you look at and go, that I'm never going to be able to do what they do. For me, for me, that is Dark Soul games. A lot of that is competitive games too, like high-end competitive of like Overwatch or Valorant. Like Valorant, Counter-Strike, those sort of things where I'm just like, high level play that I'm never going to be able to achieve. Like, it's just those days are far behind me, and I doubt I could have ever reached those days. So like I do find watching those things fascinating, turning my brain off and just experiencing the game that way. It does bring certain types of joy. I just want to do a quick shout out. Hello, Bear D. Welcome in. I hope you're having a wonderful evening. We're just chilling and talking about mental health in video games and things that bring us joy. So I had another question. I forgot what it was. My brain just went blank.
It's all good.
But yeah, so moving along with this, and this might be a very either a never happened before, or it might send you down a rabbit hole. I don't know what it's going to be for you. I know it sends me down a rabbit hole, and so I'm interested in hearing your thoughts. Have there been games that have just have there been games that just kind of hit you in in a very emotional way, whether it's an abundance of happiness or sent you spiraling down into like depression or anything like that, something that just hits you in the face where you're like, gosh darn it, this is insane. And yes, Bear D, we're happy to answer any questions, open to questions. Feel free to ask away.
Video games that sent down a spiral feeling. Yeah, because I in a way, would that be the same thing as like games that kind of just made you feel something?
Yeah, it's not anything. To kind of give you an example, I know because you mentioned that you were thinking about playing it because it's about to leave Game Pass.
Oh yeah,
Life is Strange: True Colors. I don't I've been a fan of Life is Strange to begin with. I've always been a big fan of Life is Strange, and Life is Strange: True Colors is probably my favorite of all of them, of Life is Strange 1, 2, and then Before the Storm. And the ending of True Colors, like the whole journey of True Colors was phenomenal because the whole game is basically about emotion. Alex, the character that you kind of control, her thing is empathy. She is able to feel the emotions of others to an extreme degree. And she's even able to influence the emotions of other people's because of just that's her power. And the journey that you go on from losing Alex's, I see I'm about to spoil things, so I shouldn't.
Oh boy!
Oh my god! I forgot you're going to play it. I can't spoil anything now, but because if I spoil it, then maybe it won't have a big as impact. But just like the ending, the last sort of speech that you get between Alex and Gabe, which Gabe is her brother, and this isn't a spoiler because if you watch any trailer of True Colors, they reveal that Gabe dies. So Gabe dies, and you see Ghost Gabe at the end, and he has this beautiful speech of kind of telling you what your life is going to be like the expectations of life, and just, it doesn't, and like just the message that he leaves you with is that like no matter what happens, this is you, this is your journey, this is about you, and you're making the best of it. And at that time, that's a message I needed to hear. This was my second year of grad school, and I was doubting, like, do I want to finish grad school? Do I want to keep going? And just playing Life is Strange: True Colors and hearing that, I don't know, just hit me hard that night. And I just couldn't stop thinking about it all night. I cried like a little baby because for multiple reasons, just because like also the journey was over and I was like, oh my God, this is insane. This was a powerful way to end this game. And I was just like, man, this game kind of just hit home for me in so many ways that I wasn't expecting. And so, that's one of the games that has hit me hard. And Beardy, we'll get to your question here in a moment. I'm going to let Elle think about a game that's hit him pretty hard.
There's a couple games that kind of hit me hard. Actually, one that hit me hard due to my upbringing was the funny enough, I don't know if this will make sense, but God of War 2018. The reason why I say that is because of the relationship between Kratos and his son Atreus. In a way, I kind of related that to my father and my relationship with my father, because I've never really had the best relationship with my father. And kind of like, I think there were moments in God of War where Kratos is like, he's trying the best for to raise this son, and he's trying his best with who he is, and trying to come to terms with who he is. And like there would be times with that I would be playing and I'd be like, man, I wonder, is this how my dad felt raising me when we were younger, if him trying to do the best that he could with how far he had made it in life, his upbringing, the issues, the mental health issues that he might have had, and just trying to make the best of coming to this country, trying to start a new life, trying to do all these things. And like, that was a very emotional game, because there are moments in there where you're kind of like, I think where you're kind of like, man, like this, it feels very real. Like it feels like it's very like, whoa, like I could see this if you take away him being a god and you take Atreus, with just all this supernatural, this could be just like a regular, normal father-son relationship. And them trying to kind of like keep it together. And there were moments where I think too that it kind of touched me, where like Kratos in the beginning of the game, you kind of see Kratos and like he's almost like a shell of his former self, where he's still strong and he still has like, he's like, oh, I can still do it, but he's not young anymore. He's getting older. And like seeing moments like that, I'm like, oh, it made me think about life and think about my father and like, oh, I need to talk to my dad more. I need to, because everybody, spoiler alert, we don't all live forever. And like me thinking about, life, I'm like, oh my God, am I making the most of my time to be able to keep this, keep a healthy relationship with my father? And so there are moments in there where it's like him trying to like not be this tough dad, but also try to talk to him and be like, hey, you feel like this, it's okay. Like, it's fine that you feel this way. And that's definitely like one game that kind of like, I'd be like, ooh, certain talks that he had to have with his son and trying to raise him to be this man. And I'm like, ooh, boy, like this is a little tough.
Yeah. I think God of War 2018 didn't hit me in that way. But I do recognize, because there are beautiful moments like where Kratos hesitates to comfort Atreus. He's like, he goes to reach out and then pulls back and is like, clearly you can see it through the facial expression that he wants to help, but he can't, and
exactly,
because it goes back to just, that's who he was. That's going all the way back to the first God of War game when he's being used and abused by the Olympian gods, by Zeus and all the others. And so it's like, it's fascinating to see how that shaped him and how he doesn't want the same thing to happen to Atreus.
And
so
it's so interesting because he doesn't want the same thing to happen. He's trying to make sure Atreus doesn't become like him. Yeah, that's his whole thing.
Full of anger and hate.
Full of anger, rage, and hate, and just basically just like a shutout from everybody, and just not wanting to, deal with the ways of his past. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I say that's definitely like one of those games. Yeah,
for sure. Another game for me. This is one that probably will have a lot of people going, "What are you talking about?" Especially because I know folks don't look at Mass Effect 3 kindly. But for me, Mass Effect 3 has one of the best kind of journeys in a video game. It hits so many emotional beats, and it brought me to tears. It brought me so many highs, brought me so many lows. The highs are like when Thane dies. Thane is one of my favorite characters. When Mordin dies, Mordin sacrifices himself to save the Krogans. Again, these are also choices that you can make. Well, Thane's going to die no matter what if Thane survives to the third game. Mordin is a choice that you can make because you can also keep Mordin alive. But if you keep Mordin alive, then you just basically committed genocide and potentially kill off the entire Krogan race. So, but Mordin dying was one of those gut punch moments. And then the first time that I ever played Mass Effect 3, going all the way back to 2012, I want to say it was when Mass Effect 3 came out. Might have been 2011. I can't remember. But I made a very bad choice, and that I sided with the Geth and the Quarian Geth War. At the time, I didn't have enough Paragon points to kind of settle the war between them. And when I chose that, a character named Tali kills herself. She's been one of those companions from the beginning of the game, from the beginning of Mass Effect 1. She was one of your first companions. She's one of two companions that is part of your team in all three games. The other one being Garrus, which is the name of my cat. Garrus is up there. He was in the window for a second. But Tali kills herself because if you side with the Geth, then her entire race basically gets defeated and gets wiped out. And she's like, I have nothing to live for anymore. Wow. Why did you do this? And then she just jumps off a cliff and dies. And I didn't realize that was going to happen. I thought I'd be able to talk her out of it. But no, she jumps, and I remember being completely shattered, completely floored, because I was like, what the fuck just happened? Yeah. And it was one of those things where I immediately stopped playing. restarted the game.
Wow.
Because I was like, no.
Yeah.
No. I am not letting this stand. And so I went all the way back and started Mass Effect 3 all over again because I was just like,
wow.
I am not having Tali die. There is no fucking way. And because like the Paragon, since it was like blocked out by Paragon points, I didn't know how much I would need. And so I just went back to the start and just chose nothing but Paragon points to make sure I could save her in the end. In the end, the high of the flip side to this was using this as an example, the bringing peace to the Geth and to the Quarians was just like a fuck yes moment when I was able to do that and just like in this war, this sort of circular war between these where the Geth were basically used as slaves to the Quarians. The Geth were just robots. They gained sentience. They became hyper advanced AI that started thinking and feeling for themselves. And one of the questions that they had was, does this unit have a soul? And then that's when the Geth rebelled and almost wiped out the Quarians. But then the Geth just wanted to be left alone and, you know, thrive as their own society and all of that. And so they eventually, the Geth get used by the Reapers to wipe out all organic life in the galaxy. Anyways, bringing peace and helping the Geth overcome their slavery to the Reapers and bringing into all that was just a fuck yes, feel good moment for me. And yeah, there's so many highs and lows to Mass Effect 3. For the longest time, I never thought of like Garrus. I've always liked Garrus. I always liked Garrus. I thought Garrus was a fine character in Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2. I never saw the mass appeal that people had for him with Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2, because like for Mass Effect 1, Rex was my favorite character. Mass Effect 2, it was Thane and Morden. But then Mass Effect 3 comes along. And there's a moment in the game where Garrus is like, "Hey man, let's go shoot the shit. We're gonna just take some time. There's chaos in the galaxy. Let's take a moment to breathe. It's just you and I." And Garrus is just like, "Man, we've been through a lot together. We've been through so much together." And it was that moment. And again, this is so weird to think about a video game where I'm like, "Fuck, you're right. We have been through so much together from start to finish. You were one of the constants in this journey. You were always there supporting my shepherd, always there. You know, I helped him overcome his anger, his own depression that he had. I helped him come to terms with his relationship with himself. And fuck, we've been through so much together. Like, holy fuck, you are my like best friend. What the fuck?" It's weird to think about that with a game and like have a game like Mass Effect can hit you in that way. And same with God of War or any game really, when they have like these emotional beats that can resonate with you. Because like it's not something that you probably think of when you think of video games. I don't know. For me, like I'm a narrative person. I love stories. I always want to have a story to follow and be with. And so like I always want to feel something when I'm playing a video game. But I know for a lot of people, it is just gameplay. So
it depends.
Yeah. Do you actively search out journeys for your games or?
Yeah, so the way that I usually do it is that I'll usually have a game one that is for like a journey like that, where it's a story. So, and that would be like the game that I would focus on when I just kind of want to sit down and almost like watching a TV show, watching a series. And then I have my games that I'm like, okay, these are the games that I just want to jump in and not really have anything to pay attention to. And I kind of just, that's like a Vampire Survivor or like a Slay the Spire type of game. Yeah. And so every now and then I have a story game. Then I have games that I can just hop in and out if I don't want to have to follow the story.
Yeah. Awesome.
Oh yeah.
So I'm going to bring in the question that Bear D had. It's a very, very deep question. But is how do each of you experience the continuum of escapism, comfort, and flow?
Wow. That is a very, very deep question.
Yes, very deep question. So thank you for that, Bear D. Sorry that it took a while to get to that
question. Thank you for that question. That's a great question.
Yeah. I'm going to throw it to you because I don't know what to say right now.
So just to make sure I heard you right, you said, how do we experience what was it?
The continuum of escapism, comfort, and flow. So how do we experience this sort of?
What are the motions that we go through?
Yeah, basically.
Ooh, man. For me, it usually depends. The last two very story. Well, no, I'll say three. The last three that I remember, or maybe no, never mind. Sorry, now I'm thinking of four. The last four games that I can remember specifically, the motions that I go through, like the last four games that were drawing me in, being of course God of War 2018, Red Dead Redemption 2, Inscription, and Cult of the Lamb. In a way, so what happens to me? I get all engulfed in it because. So usually the way that it starts out is there's a part of me that kind of goes like, this is just a video game. This is just a game. This is like, whatever. You're just going to go through the story and it's going to be a good story or whatever. You're going to have fun with it. And then because of like, I'll give you a perfect example, like Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm thinking, okay, here's this cast of outcasts of characters. You have Arthur Morgan, Dutch, and they're all part of this basically a gang where they're robbing and they're always on the run and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, this is cool, this is nice. And then as the story goes on, what ends up happening is I get drawn in, you start to like these people, and I'm like, oh, man, Arthur's really cool, man. Damn, like what happens is for me, I tend to find things in these characters that relate to me, and I kind of see myself in them. Yeah. And I go, man, it sucks that, they're outlaws, but at the same time, like some of these guys, they have like good hearts and they have good intentions, even though they might not always do the right thing. And it's like, you start to be like, oof, this is a little difficult. And I'll get invested and I'll be like, okay, cool. Like, what's going on? Kind of like with the same way that with what happened with Mass Effect for you for where you had to reset the game and you had to restart. I remember playing through Red Dead Redemption 2, and of course there's a moment in Red Dead 2 where you learn that Arthur Morgan has tuberculosis, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And you learn that, and I automatically, as soon as like he starts to cough and he goes to the doctor, as soon as he goes and he coughs blood and the doctor tells him what's wrong, I literally out loud to myself, I go, oh no, because me, I'm thinking, oh, there's advancements in health and technology, but like, well, no, this is the time that I'm living in. Back then, there was nothing like that. As soon as you got a diagnosis like that, you're basically a death sentence. Yeah. And so I get invested, and then like at the end of that game, spoiler alert, I'm going to spoil Red Dead 2 if you haven't played it. Arthur Morgan, he dies. He dies watching the sunset. And for me, like it messed me up a little bit because I always want to believe that there's always a way for like good to like persevere and go on and not have to like die. Mm-hmm. And me, at first, there was a little bit of rejection for me because I'm like, but he was a good guy. Like he was like a good guy, and like he wanted the best for everybody. He wanted things to be fair. Like, and to me, I was like, that's not fair. Like that's not fair at all. And having to like, so I go through all those emotions, and at the end of it, you go, man, it's just kind of like, he was a good guy, man. He deserves so much better. And then after that, I kind of go, okay, all right, let's get out of this. And then I go distract myself with another game. I just jump in and jump out of. Yeah. So I kind of go through like a little bit of emotions here and there. And then there are moments too where like in that game you get backstabbed, and I get offended. I'm like, I knew this person was bad. We should have kicked him out, or we should have took care of him. Just whatever. If they weren't around, then so and so would have lived, and blah blah blah. Yeah. And so I go through like a variety of emotions depending on like the game that I'm playing. Same thing with like God of War, but with like I was gonna say with a game like Inscription, it's a little bit different because you're kind of I got very invested in it because of the mystery behind it. Yeah. In the story, when you play through that game, you're kind of seeing these MOVs videos of the person discovering an inscription and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. And I get invested. It almost feels like a thriller in a way. Yeah. And I'm like, what's going to happen next? Like, oh, this is, my emotions get a little heightened of like playing these creepy characters and so on and so forth. And so it just depends on the game. Yeah. And lastly, sorry to be so long-winded.
Oh, no.
Lastly, Cult of the Lamb. The reason why I brought that up was because I like to think that on the surface, it seems like it's a game of just you kind of creating this cult, and you're trying to like, you're trying to basically help bring back, quote unquote, the devil to come back. But I remember at the end of that game, there's a decision that you get to make where I don't know if I should pull it, but the end. Okay,
it's not that like Cult of the Lamb is honestly not a story heavy game, so I don't even.
But what I liked about it, so at the end you fight the guy, the demon, the devil who was trying to help you get him back into the real world, and you defeat him, and he goes. You're given the choice to either kill him or spare him.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I remember playing it and I chose to kill him. But before you kill him, he presented the dialogue goes, so you're just like me. So you're just like, you're no better than I am. And I'm like, whoa, that's a little deep right there. Like to be like, you went all this way to defeat this person, but at the end of the day, because he's going to leave and he'll be gone. And he's like, well, you're just going to take my place. I'm like, you're no better than anybody else here. Yeah. And I'm like, oof, like it's like a tough philosophical question or statement in a way.
Yeah, because he is for every sense of the word the devil, and you've built this cult, and you can be a benevolent cult leader.
Yeah,
but at the end of the day, you're still having a cult, and you're still basically killing gods or something like that.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, it's so interesting, and like that stuff. I remember at the end, I was like, even though I made a decision to kill him, I was just like, was that the right decision? Like, oh man,
no,
maybe
it's 100% the right decision. I think that's a moment in a game where I had no hesitation. It's just
that's so funny.
I've worked the cult's mine. I've been working for it all this time. Fuck you. This is mine. Maybe that just says more about me than anything. Where I was just like, no. There's no hesitation on my part. I didn't have a deep thought about it until we've talked about it in the past. Where I'm like, no, I didn't hesitate, and then you told me that you were like, yeah, I didn't know if I made the right choice. And I was like, no, because I didn't hesitate with that decision.
Yeah, I guess it's with me. It just presents like an interesting idea in a philosophical sense, and I'm like, in a way, you're kind of right. Like it's the same thing with like going back to Red Dead 2, where I got sad because in that. The way the story plays out kind of reminds me of No Country for Old Men, where you're following Tommy Lee Jones, who's this old school sheriff. And basically he's trying to capture this killer played by Javier Bardem. Yeah. And, but in a sense, the story is saying that he's like the times of him where he was like the top dog or something, they're passing him. His good days are gone and he's being left behind. And like, it's like, in a way, it's like sad. Same thing with like Red Dead 2, where like the times of the cowboy are gone. Like now it's advancement. Like this is over. And it's like, whoa, that's so crazy. It makes me, just kind of think about time and just like going on and like being like your good days leaving behind. And I was just like, whoa, this is wild. But that's how it made me feel.
And while you were talking, Verdi asked, sounds like you've had some profound experiences? ?
Oh yeah, definitely. I'd say that in a way, what I really love about video games is that they can give you those profound experiences. They can games, like many forms of media, whether it be like even animes, I'll say have amazing, can give people very profound experiences and very like emotional beats and stuff. But video games have definitely given me a profound experience of just like interesting ideas about questions just about life that kind of just get your brain going of like, oh, I never thought about it this way. Like I never thought to question something or maybe even play with the idea of what if, this happened or what if that happened? What do you think that would look like? And it's so interesting to me. But yeah.
to kind of touch on the question that Verity had earlier about the escapism, comfort, and flow. For me, like I'm all about escapism. As I've said, I actively want stories. I want to be transported to another place in time, even if it's brief. Like I love narrative driven games. I love being transported, and I think going with the profound experiences part as well. I think video games are a unique experience that, because video games are interactive, I think they have a stronger opportunity to provide profound experiences. I think the shortcomings of video games right now is that the writing for the majority of video games, writing is not very good. The best way I can say it. I can. My dog's barking. Sorry, Alistair. Sorry, he's chasing my cat. The cat got out of the room and he's like barking at the cat because he was trying to play with him.
Gotcha.
But I think like video games right now, like has to ask itself. Gosh, I can't speak. What it wants to do narratively. Is it about the narrative? Is it about the video gameplay? It's, I don't know, like games like Last of Us, I think have very strong messages with the characters and stuff. You know, you have Joel, who I stand by this. I'm sorry, I'm about to spoil everything. I can't. I forgot that you haven't watched Last of Us or played Last of Us, and I'm using that as an example too.
It's so funny.
Is it okay if I spoil it? Are you cool with
go
it?
ahead.
Okay.
I'm cool.
Joel's a piece of shit. I'm going to have to say it. Joel's a piece of shit. He basically, he's faced with the common sort of save one life or save 1,000 lives. He's faced with that decision. He chooses to save Ellie because Ellie is, and I also understand the reasoning. I understand the reasoning for it, but the way that Joel goes about saving Ellie is where I draw the line. So Ellie is immune to the basically zombie crap that's happening. She got bit but didn't turn, and so they're trying to figure out, okay, what's going on with that. So she is essentially, they think she's the cure for being able to do it, but to find out the cure, they have to basically do like brain surgery type things to get into her brain and all this other stuff to get the cure. And Joel is like, nah, you ain't gonna do that. And then proceeds to murder everybody.
Oh my God.
And that's where I'm like, okay, dude, you could and granted, they probably would have murdered Joel if he, tried to take Ellie or anything like that. So I get it. Like it was a survival type thing, but like at the end of the day, like it's a brutal sort of decision to make. And I don't agree with Joel's decision. I think Joel is a piece of shit, and just not just because of that moment, but I think consistently his character through the game, he's kind of a dick and an asshole and makes some kind of questionable decisions throughout the game. And the show, they make him a little bit more sympathetic, but he still has these really violent moments.
Gotcha.
But it's an interesting thing. And then in Last of Us 2, it is sort of the sins coming back around, but being placed on a new generation.
Gotcha.
So like Joel's sins and decisions from what he did in Last of Us 1, now Ellie is kind of faced with the burden of those sins and how it affects her, and how this cycle of violence continues through her because stuff that happens. I won't spoil Last of Us 2 in any way, shape, or form, but it is a continuation of that brutal last moments that happened in Last of Us 1 and how that affects Ellie, how that affects Joel, how that affects various other characters that you get introduced into The Last of Us. And so it's this very profound sort of circle of violence. And when does it end? And how do you end it? Who's the first one to say no more? Because it wasn't Joel. Certainly wasn't Joel. So yeah, it's video games have had so many profound things for me. They provide me a lot of comfort too, as well. Like again, escapism is my go-to thing. It's also why I write. I write because I like to escape. I like to just transport myself into other worlds. It's why I watch anime. It's why I consume pretty much any medium, really. Especially when it's fantasy or sci-fi. Like I love fantasy and sci-fi things. Anything that can take me away from the real world for just a little bit, and even if it is just like a like Game of Thrones, it's a dark, gritty world. They have some really fucked up shit going on in the world. Characters do really fucked up shit, but it's also like a way to kind of reflect on what is going on in our real world in a way. You know what I mean? I think that's the power of like any sort of medium, especially video games, when you can sort of like how you compared it to No Country for Old Men and Red Dead Redemption, seeing that the parallels of times are changing and like being swept behind and having to make those changes. How do a group of people like Arthur Morgan adapt to this new world that they're facing, where their way of life is being threatened because they are no longer relevant,
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
So
I agree 100%.
My last question for you. And I think I might have already said this. After you've played a game like Red Dead Redemption or God of War that's resonated with you, do you find yourself, I don't want to say like in a dark place, but do you find yourself in like what mental health wise, how do you feel after you played? Do playing these games like affect your mental health in any way? Do you feel like you're depressed after you play them, or do you feel like sort of joyful, or do you just go like, gosh, man, this was dark as fuck? You're like, going with True Colors, like earlier, I was so gosh darn depressed, but also happy because I loved the journey that Alex went on, seeing her story complete, seeing how like all my decisions influenced what was the outcome of that game. I was like, man, this feels like it's the best outcome based off of everything that happened. I'm also depressed because of everything that happened, but it's like, I'm also happy that she found her happiness. So it's a weird thing. And like, same with Mass Effect with character deaths and stuff. I'm like, oh, I feel so like the quarry, ending the quarry and Geth War. I was like, fuck yes. But then being hit with, oh man, a character died. Fuck. How do I feel like it's like those things like resonate with me, and I still think about them. I still have those things that I walk away with. BioShock is a good one too, where but I don't think BioShock is necessarily sad or anything, but that twist, the would twist, you kindly, it's like, fuck, like it's still one of the best moments in video games ever, just from a writing perspective, would you kindly, it's like, that twist really fucks with you because it makes you reevaluate everything that you were doing up to that point.
Exactly. I still remember when I first discovered that twist and I played it, and I remember being in awe and shock and awe, just like, oh my God, like, what have I done? This whole thing's been a lie, and
I'm a bad person. What am I doing?
Exactly. What have I done? I've been lied to. For me, it usually depends. I do remember, like when I finished playing Red Dead 2 and just watching Arthur watch the sunset, a part of me felt like, the hopeful side of me was like, couldn't there have been any other way? Like, even though I know like that's the story, that's just, hey, it's the sun setting on the cowboy. Like, that's just, it is what it is, a part of me kind of does sit with him and be like, man, like, he could have lived. He could have gone to leave the life of being an outlaw to having a normal life. A part of me, just sits with that for a little bit, and then I kind of go, well, maybe that's just how it has to go sometimes. Yeah. Because although I think there are even moments, if I remember right, in the story where he's talking to I think some woman about the life that he lived, and he talks about, he's like, I think it might have been the woman that he was in love with he was talking to someone about his ex-wife or ex-girlfriend, and he was he told her like, hey, you don't want to get mixed up with me because I'm going down a path that is not the best for you. You know, you want to stay away from me. And a part of me goes, man, you could turn that life around. You could be like a normal person. Like you're a great person.
You could go with this person that you love and be with them. You don't have to stay in this life. Yeah,
exactly. You don't have to do that. You can just go. But it's like at the end of the day, I kind of just go. At the end of the day, he made the decision to continue going down the path. And it was just in his nature to kind of go that way. And I kind of just sit with that and I go, man, that sucks. Like, you know, it's a great story, but you know, I'm just like, oh man, it's the same way with, cause in a sense, Red Dead 1 is basically the sins of the past catching up to, James Marston.
Yeah.
And it's like,
it's John, isn't it?
John Marston. Sorry, James. John Marston.
It's a J, and like, you know, J.
That's basically a continuation of it, where the cowboy is basically, it's the very end of that era, and he's trying to escape it and just live a normal life and have a family, but he can't escape it. And like, you know, spoiler alert to this old, over 10-year-old game, he ends up dying too. And
no, he doesn't. Like, didn't you play the zombie version? He's back.
He comes back to life. And because I remember that ending too, just his son kind of being like, oh man, he saw his dad die and get murdered for the past, and then unfortunately, in a sense, to get revenge, he takes up the life that he was living, you know.
Yeah.
And it's super, super crazy, but I tend to kind of sit with it for a little bit, not too long, and I just go, man. But that was a wild ride, you know. Yeah. It was a ride that, sure, maybe it didn't end the way that I wanted it to, but I enjoyed that ride.
Yeah. Video games, I think above all other mediums, linger with me the longest.
Yeah.
And I say linger with me, it's because I feel like I can constantly talk about them. Thank you, Verdi. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. He's taking off. Thank you for the question so much, and I hope you have a wonderful time with your evening plans.
Thank you.
I don't know if you see the chat, Elle. He says, the universe smiles on both of you. So,
oh, thank you.
Yeah. So thank you again, Verdi. But yeah, Persona is a game that I could talk about on so many levels. Specifically Persona 5 Royal, and just Persona 5 Royal hit me at like an incredible moment in time for me, where I don't know really how to describe the journey, because I think it's a journey that if you can sink 100 hours into Persona 5 Royal, which you have to, because that's a long ass fucking game, that 100 hours, it's payoff. The journey is worth it in every single way imaginable. I cried so many times in that game, just because like the story beats are so personal, so real in many ways. Characters, it covers so many topics, from suicide to abuse to not feeling adequate to trying to find your place in the world. It covers so many freaking things that I've dealt with, you know, personal things that I've dealt with in my life, that it just hit me so hard, like experiencing it. And so if anybody has the time to play Persona 5, I definitely think you should, just because the journey is incredible. I do say that again, there are trigger warnings there with suicide and abuse and stuff like that. So if that stuff that is not comfortable for you, don't play Persona, but the journey is worth going through. That journey, experiencing that story, experiencing these characters, learning about these characters, learning about their histories, their relationships. It goes back to Mass Effect in a lot of ways, where it's just like, I got to the end of the game where I was like, yeah, you guys are my friends. You guys are my fucking companions of this. Holy shit. You've been all the crap that we've been through, and here we are at the end. Yeah, it was something special. And I don't know how to describe it, and I don't want to spoil anything beyond what I've said, because it is an experience that I think I'm going to struggle to experience again, if that makes sense. It's an experience that I don't think I'm going to be able to replicate in another video game, because I think, and this is why Persona 5 has quickly become like one of my favorite games of all time. The more I think about it, the more I play it, the more I'm like, maybe it is my favorite game of all time. Maybe it does go above Portal, where Portal is a comfort game for me, but the emotional impact of Persona 5 on me was something more in a lot of ways. And yeah, I don't know how to much more describe it than that. But yeah, video games hit me very hard in so many ways. That's why I play video games to cope with my mental health, to kind of to fall into this escapism. It helps me process. It helps me find connections in my own life and make sense of things that are going on. So yeah, I hope that all made sense.
No, yeah, definitely perfectly makes sense.
All right. So we've been going on for a while now, a lot longer than I was expecting, I'm going to be honest. Any last things you want to say, Al?
I'll say this, that video games can be an amazing experience, from the stories that they tell to the characters that are there that you interact with or you play as. And I think they're great. And I think that everybody, whether you're, an avid gamer or you play maybe once every few months or once a year or whatever, it's good to get lost in a game from time to time, because you never know what you're going to learn or what it might bring up that'll relate to you in a way. Yeah. But other than that, games are great.
Yeah, I agree. Games are fantastic. And games, as I mentioned earlier, I think have the potential to, more so than film, more so than just novels or anything like that, to really change perspectives for you, to change. I guess that's the best way I can describe it, because there's so many aspects to it that incorporate art from everywhere. It's almost a culmination of all art, because you got music, you got art, you got graphics, arts, you got storytelling, you have performances in some cases, not all games, mixed with gameplay, and it's it's something else. And when people say that it's still a childish thing, it's like, no, video games have matured far more than faster than any other medium, in my opinion, because video games have only been around for what, 40, 50 years, going, I think 70s, 80s. So yeah, it's like, it is still the youngest form of entertainment, right? Yeah. I can't think of another, I can't think of something that's newer than video games. So yeah.
No, agreed 100%. Definitely. Yeah. Games are amazing. Like I said, I think that, like I said, games are amazing and you can learn a lot from them. Not with all games, but not every game is meant to be learned from. And some games are just to turn your brain off and go try to survive for 20, 30 minutes. In the case of Vampire Survivor, just turn your brain off and not worry about the world. And sometimes you need that. And sometimes you definitely need that. So, oh yeah.
All right, El, we've talked long enough. Wind us down.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to the live podcast of Respawn Please podcast here, which we always have it live usually every Friday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. If you miss out on the live, it's okay, because the edited version always goes up on Monday around 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, as well as the audio version, which is available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, just everywhere you can get podcasts. And then also be sure to follow us on our social media account, which is at Respawn Please Podcast on Instagram and TikTok. And on Twitter, it's at Respawn_Please. And also
don't ever post on that.
Also visit respawnplease.com for game reviews, things about the podcast, just updates about us. And be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for future episodes or videos that we got coming out. Yeah.
Thank you all for joining us tonight. Just a quick reminders. At the end of the month, Elle is going to be traveling out of the country. So there's going to be about 2-week period where we will not have Respawn Please and we will not have Wednesday gameplays. Just giving everybody a heads up. Elle, what are the exact dates, periods? Because it's
it'll be from the 25th of April, and I'll be back on the 4th of May.
Okay. And we're not doing the podcast on the 5th because you need to get adjusted.
Oh yeah, get readjusted
from being in Japan. So just wanted to give everybody that update. And yeah, be on the lookout for our other things though. We have the Wednesday gameplays.
Yep.
What are we doing this Wednesday? Next Wednesday?
This Wednesday,
you can decide right now on stream.
Oh boy, I could always
Overwatch
go
got it. The new season starts, right? So we might as well.
That is right. You're right. Oh, that'd be dope.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we could do that.
Okay. Maybe Sons of the Forest too if we get bored.
Yeah.
We gotta get back to our complex that we're building.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Anyways, have a wonderful night, y'all. Thank you all for joining us. We will see you next time.